We had our 15 seconds of silence. That's about all the average congregation can stand in the United States of America today. That's kind of funny, but it's really not funny because it's true. About 30 seconds to a minute and a half, it's been tallied apparently, is about all that people can handle of silence or reflection. If somebody's not praying out loud or talking or singing or worshiping or doing something that people can handle, which is a sad commentary on our ability for genuine introspection in the presence of God, right? I mean, a lot of people are morbidly introspective, and then some people do no internal inventory whatsoever, and it shows in their lives that they simply have very little awareness, conscience-wise, of the effect of their actions on other people. So we got to strike the balance somewhere. We don't live out of guilt and shame. We're not sinners by nature any longer. We are saints in the sight of God because we've been redeemed by the blood of Christ. We are in Him, joined with Him, co-heirs with Him. But we also are in the process of renovation, restoration. And that takes some insight, takes some internal inventory. It takes allowing the light of Jesus Christ to shine on the deep, dark places of the soul. And it's a painful path. And sometimes what we see is fairly ugly. And when we do, and we recognize it as being wrong, out of line with God's character, harmful to other people, we ask Him to begin the process of change, and we cooperate with it. And this is important. I don't know where, I just thought it's just here, so I'm going to share it, but and then we'll go on. But this is critical to the life of the heart, and it's critical to the life that we share with God. Because this has never confused me as a person and as a pastor and as a theologian with a small t, but apparently a lot of people have trouble with it. If you have a theology that's Calvinistic and is sort of everything's preordained type thing, God has a sovereign will at work in human history. His sovereign will that He desires for every human life, every nation, every community, every church, every family, every marriage, etc. But you and I are free moral agents in this conflict, in this battle. We were created that way. It's part of the way that we reflect the image of God to a fallen world. We are free, which means that we can choose for God or against God, right? Positively or negatively, for good or for evil in any given situation. So as God's sovereign will is working its way out through human history, guess how it's going to come? Through you and I surrendering and submitting to it, humbling ourselves, embracing His will with our will. And when those two come together at any given moment, in your life, in my life, and an opportunity for worship like this, in your business, your interactions with your family, whatever it happens to be, the kingdom of God is present in that place. May your kingdom come, your will be done. They are parallels in that little bit of prayer poetry. I mention that only because change doesn't come without your cooperation. It doesn't come without your embrace of it. And it doesn't come oftentimes without some lengthy steps down a painful path. But God desires to bring restoration, healing, and transformation to each and every one of us. Abba, we thank You that You are a mighty God of grace, the Father of mercies, and one who defines Himself as love. We confess this morning that we need Your love. We're not playing a game. This is not semantics. We're not just looking at biblical language. We need Your presence and Your power, Your holiness, Your purity, Your tenderness over us as Your children. And so this morning, take this spirit of joy and celebration and worship that was so present during the music and use it through Your word to inspire us and to challenge us, to seek something deeper, something beyond, in every way, shape, and form, with You first and with others as well. To not end our lives in bitterness or anger or unforgiveness, that doesn't have to be us. Our sins have been forgiven in Jesus, and His cross is the cure for bitterness. It's the solution to bitterness. We know how to forgive, and we know why to forgive because we look at the cross. So thank You, Abba, for sending Your Son. Thank You for purifying us of all our sins. Spirit of the living God, open the eyes of our hearts and show us what it means to walk deeply with You. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen? All right, Matthew chapter 23. We will begin at the beginning. Not a bad place to start, huh? Matthew 23. Jesus has just finished confounding those who were trying to confound him, David. He's got people coming and posing questions, trying to trap him, trying to catch him. What's the greatest commandment? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. He takes these two Old Testament commands and weaves them together into one. When you get to chapter 23 here, it says, Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, to his followers, his apprentices, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Okay, that's not a literal chair. That is the place of presumed legal authority. The scribes, the Pharisaic scribes, believed that their interpretation of Scripture was on par with Moses' teaching, that they, in fact, were Moses' successors in their generation. You following that? So it's a place of presumed legal authority, Michael, that they had. And here's what he tells the people, and here's what he tells his disciples. They sit in Moses' seat. In other words, they are interpreting the law for you, and we know that they were legalistic to the core. So you must obey them and do everything they tell you. But do not do what they do, but they do not practice what they preach. That sounds like James chapter 1, doesn't it? That they are hearers only and not doers of. That's exactly what that is. They don't practice what they preach. They tie up heavy loads and put them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. That idea of tying up heavy loads and weighing people down with them, weighed down with shame, with guilt, with more and more regulation, legalisms, etc. That's the historical prerogative of religion. That is religion in a nutshell, right there. And there is a difference, and I don't care who doesn't like the language, there's a difference between religion and relationship, a profound difference. Religion, if you research the Latin term, actually comes from a term, religio, in the Latin, which means to bind back again. To bind back. From re and ligare, to bind again, or to bind back. I don't know about you, I've been bound, and I prefer unbound. I've been a slave, and I like freedom. I don't want to be bound again to something else. And I have been bound spiritually within Christianity by, people's, their own set of rules on the wall and, whatever it is. Is this too loud? It seems loud to me. Is it okay? Okay. Huh? It's just making sure it's got a little echo to it. They tie up heavy loads, they put them on men's shoulders, but they won't lift a finger. They won't lift a finger to move the heavy loads that they weigh people down with. I mean, this is, when you walk out of a worship service feeling worse than you did when you walked in, you got a problem. Something's wrong. Something's wrong with the message, something's wrong with the spirit, something's wrong with maybe the very attitude of the place. When you dread going to worship, but you go because you feel you have to, listen, I'll just be honest with you, if that's, you're not being bound legalistically in this place of grace. But if that's how you approach God and that's how you approach worship, and you just happen to be dragged here by somebody, don't be dragged. I'm the only guy I know that's ever told people don't come back to a church. And I don't mean that I don't mean that like, hey, you got a problem, don't come back. Of course, if you did, I would say that. But if it's just like, oh gosh, I have to go, I can't, really, you're wasting your time, and honestly, you're wasting mine, because I have a message. This book is full of freedom and life for the human heart. I want to see you free. I want to see you loving, joyful, creative, caring, generous people who live generously and love graciously. That's the goal. That's what God is doing in our lives. If that's not your goal, we're not on the same page. We're not in the same book if that's not your goal. Because that's my goal as a human being, and that's my goal as a shepherd. If you say, well, I'm not really interested in that, well then I don't have anything to offer you if you're not interested in that, in becoming who God created you to be in the beginning. Remember, we are predestined, right, to become conformed to the image of his Son. And his Son is the strongest, most powerful, most loving, most tender, right, most courageous, most joyful, most generous, most gracious, most merciful man to ever walk the earth. If that sounds like something you don't want to be, then you're in the wrong place. And I hope that you say, well, okay, that sounds pretty good. I want that. But then stick around, because that's where we're going. That's where we're headed. It shouldn't be, our interactions with God shouldn't be filled with shame. And our worship within his community shouldn't be something that we dread. If it is, there's a major problem. There's a major problem, maybe on both sides of the picture, but certainly from the communication standpoint and from the leading standpoint, right? And I would hope that the people here who are a little further down the road, that we're all in this together, trying to kick doors open so that people can walk in fields of grace, right? Fields of freedom, shimmering with those golden hues of grace, that we're all trying to kick those doors open so that other people can be free, not lead you back into a pen somewhere. That's what they were doing with their Jewish counterparts in the first century. And here's what Jesus says about it, beginning again in verse 5. They won't move these heavy loads that they weigh people down with. You know why? Because everything that they do is done for men to see. Do you see that? I mean, there's not a lot. You don't need a lot of exegesis for that. Everything they do is done for people to see. In other words, there's this ostentatious attempt at righteousness, attempt at holiness, attempt at spirituality. So I want everyone to see and to recognize and applaud me for how spiritual I am. In a lot of churches, that may, if you are depressed and you're suffering from depression, you're lauded for your spirituality, right? Just yeah, that's probably not a healthy thing, right? And again, I'm not making fun of depression. I'm saying that has been the case. David and I heard a story one time from a speaker out in Colorado who was talking about a client of his that had been clinically depressed for a couple of years, and his church was, people were patting him on the back almost, like, hey, wow, gosh, you seem to be really serious young man, and he was suicidal. And something's wrong with that picture, right? Something's wrong with it, seriously wrong with it. So here are these leaders, here are the Pharisees, and here are the scribes, the teachers of the law, sitting in the place of presumed legal authority in Judea in the first century, and he's saying everything they do is done for men to see. They make their phylacteries wide and the tassels on their garments long. They love the place of honor at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues. They love to be greeted in the marketplaces and to have men call them Rabbi, which means my master. Well, isn't that convenient? Hello, my master, right? Who wouldn't want to be called that? Phylacteries are just like little boxes, sometimes made of leather. You can see them even today as Jews pray at the Wailing Wall, and they are attached to leather straps. They will wrap all the way around their left arm and on their forehead, little boxes that contain scrolls, many scrolls of Scripture, especially the Shema, right? The prayer every day, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. The monotheistic prayer of Judaism, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That is one of the main passages that's contained in there. And they get that idea from the Old Testament, and they would wear these things. So they would, it started out as a little bitty container, and as they went on, it got bigger and bigger and bigger because, we want people to see, how much Scripture we're holding near our heads and on our hands. And the same thing about the tassels on the garments, the wings of the garment, right? The tassels, the longer they were, the more esteemed you were, or the holier you are. We have holy clothing in a lot of circles within Christianity today. And I've got a lot of comments today because I'm wearing a tie and, I'm wearing half a suit with that. I put the jacket in my office because, dang, it's hot in that jacket. So I don't normally wear this, but I had a funeral service in Hot Springs yesterday. I joked with my buddy David. I said, I just slept in these clothes last night and got up and, came in. So it was easy. It was an easy transition. But listen, there's nothing. I also have been a part of a church where, anybody that was speaking, evangelist, pastor, teacher, whomever, they better be wearing a suit. I didn't come out of that. I was a part of it for a few years. I was dragged there by some people that we normally call parents. Not my mother, by the way. But, they had, you know what I'm talking about. Suit and tie, man. It's got to be, right? Because, that's holy attire. When we got robes, my wife came from an Anglican background, Episcopalian. Well, there's 4 Episcopalians, there's always a 5th. They know how to party, right? But they have certain attire. They got the clerical collar, and some of them still wear the robes. At Eve's funeral, her mother's funeral, he had the full robes on. The Holy Right Reverend something, something, something. I was like, man, I need a couple more titles. I mean, just Reverend Rick, that's kind of plain, isn't it? I thought it was catchy, Reverend Rick, but, you know, we need 3 or 4 more titles on the front of that. It's joking. And this passage actually talks about stuff just like that. So they have this holy attire, they have these things that make them stand out. Why are they doing this? Why do they do all this stuff? To be seen by men. Everything, I mean, he just says everything they do is done for people to see, for men to see. The place of honor at banquets is the place closest to the host, and especially at his right hand. We have that whole concept of kings and princes giving feasts in the ancient world. The right-hand man at your place, that's the person who has second most in authority and power, etc. But the closer you are, just picture a long banquet table. Just picture a table like this, and your host is at the end. I mean, these people here are honored guests. And it gets a little less honorable the further down you go. And if you're at the far end, well, you know your social status, right? I mean, seriously, it sounds odd, but that's the way that it works. That's the way that it worked. And so people sometimes would, Jesus even gives a little bit of social wisdom in a particular passage when talking to his people. He says, listen, when you go to a banquet, sit down here first. And if the host wants to honor you, he'll say, no, don't sit there. Come up here by me. Let him honor you. Don't sit here, because if you sit here and he doesn't want you there and he puts you at the far end, then you get disgrace in everybody's eyes. It's just a little bit of social wisdom. Don't put yourself first. Start back there and let him elevate you. Let him exalt you, which is exactly what he's about to tell us as far as God is concerned. Let him do that for you as well. They wanted the place of honor at banquets. They wanted to be seen by people. They wanted the most important seats in the synagogue. Some of the most important seats, this platform here, this stage that we would call it, would be called the bema in the ancient world. The raised platform, that was in Greek language, that's the tribunal, right? That's where things were judged in the Olympic Games, or that's where legal proceedings took place and judgments were handed down. There was a raised platform in the synagogue, and the chief seats would have been right here in front, right down front. So everybody else is facing this way, and guess who is facing that way? The Pharisees in the chief seats. They want everybody to see them. I guess it's closer to the scrolls, where the scrolls are kept, so we're holier, so we get a little closer to the Word of God, right? And they actively sought these things. They love to be greeted in the marketplaces and to have men call them Rabbi or Rabbi, my master. Greetings were so important socially that specific rules developed on how to greet whom and when. How to greet, you could do that even with dignitaries today. There are certain rules of engagement, I guess. And they do the same thing. All these things developed about, how do you greet this person? When do you greet them? To not do this, if you, in the marketplace, if you were to see a Pharisee, a Sadducee, one of the scribes in the marketplace, to not greet someone, to not do this for someone who was superior in their understanding of the law, that was considered a grievous insult. Again, it sounds weird, it doesn't necessarily communicate to us, but that's the reality. That's the first century world that you're dealing with here. But you are not to be called Rabbi, my master, for you have only one master, one Kurios, one Lord. That's Jesus. Now, here's the thing. Is it wrong to be called the president of a company or to be the pastor of a church or whatever? No, here's the thing. They're seeking titles. They're seeking titles of honor to inflate their own arrogance. That's the whole point of what he's saying. They're seeking these titles. They want you in the marketplace to say, oh, Paul, my master, with the whole, pseudo-humility and all the rest of it. Oh, yes, so much better than me type thing. You are not to be called Rabbi, for you have only one master, and you are all brothers. That sounds like equality to me. That sounds like equal standing before God. That there are no great believers and lowly believers. You have people who have trusted Jesus and are going to do their own thing, and they're going to walk whatever path that they want from there on. I'll see you on the other side. And you have followers and worshipers. We're talking about differing degrees of intimacy and welcome of God's power and presence in one's life. But listen, all this stuff it's all going to be equaled out one day when we get to the other side. There may be differing levels of reward, but guess what? Everybody who has trusted in Jesus Christ and all those different denominations that all disagree with each other, and we may disagree with as well, as long as they have come to the Son of God in simple faith and accepted his cross and resurrection and ascension as their own, they're going to be there, right? Crazy charismatics, Catholics who have put works aside and trusted in the grace of God, Episcopalians, Presbyterians, whomever, right? So there's a lot of crazy stuff out there as far as, well, how are we supposed to function and how do we walk with God and all the rest of this? And there's all these differing interpretations. And obviously what distinguishes most churches and most movements within Christianity is that they believe a certain way, that this is how it's done, or this is how we do it, or whatever it is. And there is a lot of stuff. There's a lot of squirrely stuff, and a lot of it's wrong. But when we're talking about someone's faith in the Son of God, the only thing that matters is the work of Jesus Christ. And so they may have gone awry in what they understand about the Bible after salvation. But if they're saved, no matter what their background is, we're going to see them on the other side. And we're all going to be sons and daughters of God, just like we are now. And all this stuff that we battled over isn't going to mean anything in eternity. I'm not saying that doctrine, that truth, that theology is not important. That's not what I'm saying. So don't walk out of here and say, well, I think he was saying there's really no difference at all. We just kind of all, That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the family of faith and those who have believed in Jesus Christ. They may come from 1,000 different backgrounds. They may come from 22,000 different backgrounds, because that's how many different denominations we have. About 23,000 in the world, which is sick. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's loony as a road lizard, but it is what it is. You are all brothers. Do not call on anyone on earth Father, for you have one Father, and he is in heaven. Only Abba deserves this kind of deference. That's my point here. Only Abba deserves this kind of deference. Well, I call my father Dad, or whatever. The thing about it, again, these are the leaders within Judaism, and they're seeking to be called Abba or Papa by their own disciples, because there were many rabbis in the ancient world who taught that if, let's just get this for a moment. Now, your parents are in trouble and they need help financially, and you have the means to help them. But your rabbi is also in trouble and he needs help financially, and you have the means to help him. They're teaching that you should be calling him Abba. So what do you think they're trying to say to somebody about their loyalty, about what kind of responsibility they might have to help someone in trouble, if they're wanting to be called father and they're wanting to be looked at as a spiritual father, a guide into the law, okay, etc. They were literally telling these young men, listen, if your parents are in need and I'm in need, help me first, okay? Now the law says honor your father and mother, right? And Judaism and Hebrews as a whole, that's a family-centric society. They're saying, no, we, as teachers of the law, we take precedence over family. Judy, are you guys following that? Why it says this? Oh, well, I can't call my dad. No, see, that's the kind of squirrely application we don't need. Nor are you to be called teacher, for you have one teacher, the Messiah. Again, this is about seeking titles of honor to inflate one's arrogance. And this is what I love. Listen, the greatest among you will be your servant. The greatest among you will be your servant. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. If you exalt yourself and you get sent to the back of the room, right? Not good. All right. Every person has something to offer. Every single human being has gifts and abilities. And you, my friends, as children of the Most High, you have supernatural gifts to offer a world which desperately needs them. The greatest among you will be your servant. Now listen close. Service sets the example for others. Service sets the example for others. You want to lead? Serve. You want to lead? Serve. You want people to follow you? Serve them first. Show them what it looks like to be a servant. That's the whole point right here. The greatest among you will be your servant. We just saw this in Mark when Jesus talking to his own disciples, when they were trying to elevate themselves and exalt themselves. James and John said, Jesus, It'd be really nice if you gave us that place in your kingdom at your right hand and your left hand, and we could rule alongside you. We could be your co-regents in your kingdom. I mean, it is coming, isn't it? You have said the kingdom of God is near. You know, be really, really neat if the two of us are brothers, because, you know, we are cousins. So you just kind of put us in there. That would be great. And of course, it really ticked off the other disciples, probably because they were angling for the same place in Jesus' kingdom. And he said, it's not like that with you. It won't be like the rulers of the Gentiles who lord it over their people who take authority and power over other human beings. The first will be last among you. And the one who wants to be the leader of all and wants to be the greatest, he will be the servant. That's the crazy kingdom of grace right there. Service sets the example for others. Service. Self-pity, on the other hand, the bitter belief that you're not being served enough. No one is serving me. I want to thank everybody in here. We had just a small handful who have stepped up and helped out in the back, and I appreciate that, because most of the people helping back there don't have kids or grandkids back there. And I appreciate that. I deeply appreciate it. I really do. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Self-pity. You're not being served enough. No one is serving me. That's a heart killer. That's a heart killer. And that's not all. I mean, I'm using that one concept of self-pity because there's a whole lot more there. But that bitter belief that we often have that, no one's this, no one's that, that's a heart killer. And I mean anytime, all the time. Self-pity is a killer. In the words of former Navy SEAL Dr. Eric Greitens, when people are able to look beyond themselves and be of service to others, they actually become stronger. Winners step outside themselves and remember there are people to their left and to their right, counting on them to be strong. Now, let me reframe what he just said from a scriptural perspective. Overcomers, in the Jesus message to the churches of Asia Minor, the 7 churches of Asia Minor in Revelation, you see at the end of each one of those, he who overcomes, I will do this and I will do that. I will give him a white stone with a new name on it. We talked about this Thursday night, and what an amazing picture that is. Not just of the white stone meant acquittal. My sins are forgiven. I am declared not guilty in the eyes of the universe, but a new name, and the only one who will know that name is you. That's, to me, is a phenomenal image of intimacy with Jesus Christ. Jesus is going to share something with us. God knows what he had in mind, who you truly are, all of the battles, all of the service, all of the action and activity of your life from beginning to end, everything you were or desired to be, and all that he had in mind, and all of that is going to be pictured, is going to be embodied in this name, this new name that God gives you in eternity. And you're the only one who's going to know it. When we talked about this, I just used a little C.S. Lewis sanctified imagination in the context of the wedding feast of the Lamb. As you walk into what is the most sacred circle of all, the human heart longs to belong, to be a part of something, to be on the inside. Because so often in our lives we've been shut out and we've been pushed to the outside. I remember an old thing that a pastor used to say many years ago, if I can remember it accurately. A rebel, a heretic, a thing to flout. He drew the circle, shut me out. Christ and I had the will to win. We drew the circle that took him in. You see that? Exclusion versus inclusion. And we all want to be on the inside. All of, elementary school, junior high, high school, all of it's all made up of this kind of idiocy, right? Struggling to be on the inside, whatever that place is. One day, you're going to walk into the most sacred circle of all, and you're going to find a place waiting for you at the table. Not just with your name on it, but with your new name on it. The white stone waiting for you that has a name that only you will know, and maybe a name that only you will recognize. I don't know if it's written on there in a script that only you can see. I'm just using sanctified imagination. I have no idea how it's going to appear. But what if it is? What if people walk by your place setting at the wedding feast of the Lamb and go, oh, that's not mine, that's not mine, that's not mine. Oh, that's mine. That's mine. What do you want to be? What do you want to be? Aragorn? Arwen? Maximus? I don't know. I don't know what your name is going to be, but you're going to know it when you see it. I love that. You're going to know it when you see it. Man, I don't know what that does for you. That lights my fire. I know God has something in store for us far beyond anything we can intellectualize or imagine, and that's just a piece of the puzzle. So overcomers, he who overcomes, they step outside themselves, their own pain and self-pity, their self-hatred and self-absorption, and remember their fellow warriors to their left, to their right. Counting on them, you don't have to be strong. What you have to do is trust in the essential goodness of God. Counting on them to trust in the essential goodness of God and to be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. There's a huge difference, Gary, in being strong in the Lord and in his mighty power and you just bucking up and being strong. Good luck with that in a world that is geared to wage war against your heart. Good luck with it. I hope it goes well for you. Gandhi once said, Gandhi, who recognized the beauty of Jesus Christ and said, I love your Christ, but I do not love your Christians because they are so unlike your Christ. That is an indictment that stands for all generations. He once said the best way to find yourself. You ever uttered those words? I mean, everybody find yourself. You usually need to go out west to the coast or Colorado or somewhere, or California, because you're usually somewhere out there when you have to find yourself. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service to others. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Jesus paints an even stronger picture. Listen to this, Mark 8:34. Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples. Same people he's talking to here in Matthew. Not same instance, but the same people. The crowds, the people of Judea and his disciples. And said, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, deny herself. Denial of self is a completely different animal from self-denial. Do you hear that? Denial of self is a completely different animal from self-denial. This is not a minuscule matter of one fewer cupcake after dinner so your daughter will have some left for her kids in class tomorrow. I'm going to exercise I'm going to deny, self-denial will be, I won't have that last cupcake, right? I'm going to suffer through this. Oh, giving up ice cream for Lent or alcohol for Easter. Oh, no beer for Jesus' resurrection. Oh, I'm going to suffer through this, right? Self-denial. No, this is not that. The next phrase shows us what he's talking about. Listen, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Follow me. The cross is not if you give up ice cream for Lent, oh gosh, I know people that do stuff like that in the name of Lent and all the rest of it. And really in the back of their mind, the subconscious motive is, well, I probably stop drinking Coke for 30 days or stop eating ice cream. I could drop 15 or 20 pounds, which is not a bad thing. Hey, that's good, but it has nothing to do with God. There's nothing to do with God. I'm just gonna exercise a little bit of self-denial, right? Self-denial when it comes to cupcakes and ice cream and alcohol. Of course, you can eat cupcakes for breakfast as long as you call them a muffin. That's what we learned from our good buddy, the Navy SEAL, Adam Brown. The cross is not an instrument of inconvenience. It is an instrument of death. There's a difference. The cross is not an instrument of inconvenience. One less cupcake, no more ice cream after dinner, right? Half a beer instead of 4.5. Take up your cross is not a way of saying, and this we need to get some clarity on this. It's not a way of saying gut it out in your marriage. Well, I'm just gonna bear my cross. My husband or wife. One, what are you saying about your husband or wife? And two, wow, what does that say about the cross? This is not a way of saying gut it out through your marriage. Grit through your physical pains and sufferings. Endure this present economic hardship. Are you with me? It took a while, didn't it? Didn't it, Vernon? It was like, I'm looking around. Maybe, apparently we're not. That's not what it's saying. Listen, that is ridiculous. I'm just going to bear this cross, oh gosh. This physical pain, this economic hardship, this trouble in my marriage, my children, whatever it is going to bear my cross. That's ridiculous. Not only this, it's a slap in the face of the Son of God, who suffered and died on Calvary's cross so you and I could be free from sin, Satan, darkness, and death forever. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for me and for the gospel will save it. That's not just martyrdom, though it would include that. That is losing your life, denial of self, dying to self, so that Jesus can live. In me, through me, with me, go before me, go beside me, go behind me, go above me. Jesus, surround me in all things. I don't know how you look at your relationship with the Trinity or with Jesus specifically, but I can tell you there is no doubt in my mind after 44 years of self-awareness that apart from Jesus, I have no hope. Capital N, capital H. And I mean not just no hope for eternity, I mean no hope for now. There is nothing good in my flesh, in my sinful nature to offer the world. That I can guarantee you. Which my mother could verify, and my wife, and anybody else, probably Fireball and a few others in here. But listen, I'm not alone in that, and I'm not beating myself up. That's reality. That's your reality as well. I'm just asking you to open your eyes and awaken to it. Jesus is our holiness. Jesus is our peace. Jesus is our strength, our courage, our conviction. He is what we need in the moment, of every moment, every moment. What good is it, he asked, for a man to gain the whole world, yet forfeit his soul? Or what can a man give in exchange for his soul? I'll ask you this, what is your soul worth? What is it you'll sell out for? I know a situation of a man who was needing a piece of equipment, driving down the road one day, saw one for sale on the side of the road, pulled over, made a deal with the person, did not have the money on him, said, listen, I'll be back. $65. I'll be back. I'm going to get the money. I'll be back. In the meantime, while he was gone, someone came and offered the guy $85. The guy sold it. After shaking hands and making a deal, so he comes back and he's put $65, and the guy says, well, when you left, about 10 minutes later, man, someone came along and offered me $85. He said, so your soul is worth exactly $20 then. Because that's what you sold out for, $20. We see people sell out for $20,000, $2 million, $200,000, $20, $200. What are you willing to compromise on? And I'm talking about majoring in the majors now, not the minors. What are you willing to sell out for? It's a question to ask yourself. Do you have a price? $200, man. That's not it. Just $2,000. How about $20? How much money do you need? $2 million? Remember, what is it that Hollywood likes to tell us in movies? Everybody has I say that's a lie. That's a lie. Some people will die for what they believe in. Some people live by courage and conviction, not by the whim of the moment or what they need in their pocket. If anyone is ashamed of me, my words, in this adulterous and sinful generation, Jesus could be speaking now, and he is speaking now. If anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of him or her when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels. In John 12:24, Jesus told a group of Greeks who were seeking an audience with him, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies. You see this? It's the same death to self that we just saw. Unless it falls to the ground and dies. It remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. And this is how it works in the crazy kingdom of grace. In the upside-down reality of life in Jesus' kingdom. The man who loves his life, who clings to it and all it offers him with everything that he has. By the way, ladies, you think he's just talking to men here? You think this is gender specific? Now that's more of embracing all of mankind. The person who clings to their life and all that it offers them with everything that they have, instead of surrendering it willingly to the Lord of all life, will lose it. While the man who hates his life in this world, not hates himself or herself, as our friend Ranger Horton pointed out Monday night, if you hate yourself, you'll never love anyone else. Self-hatred is toxic, and that's a good point to remember. He will keep it for life eternal. Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, my servant also will be. My Father will honor the one who serves me. My Father will honor the one who serves me. Again, if you exalt yourself, God's going to see to it that you get humbled. If you humble yourself, and you serve others, become not only the greatest, but one day God will honor you. He'll honor you before the entire watching universe as he hands out his rewards at the Bema, the tribunal of eternal reward. My Father will honor the one who serves me. You see, and this is crucial to the life of the heart. Humility is essential to effective service in the kingdom of grace. Humility is essential. And the reason we have dealt with what we've dealt with, and last week we had a Q&A session, but this week and in Mark the week before that on service and humility is because that's the capstone to our little mini series on grace, because they go hand in hand. If you love grace, you are going to be humble in heart. You are going to be somebody who has embraced an attitude of humility as one of the guiding lights of their life. And if you're humble, guess what? You will love grace and you will appreciate it. If you don't really appreciate grace and what God has done for you and the gifts that he so freely offers, Peggy, you need to look in the mirror and check the humility factor in your life. I mean, it works. That just works both ways. You'll have a disdain for grace. It just won't mean anything to you. Humility is essential to effective service in the kingdom of grace. It's one of the truest expressions of submission and surrender to an authority that is above your own, to someone greater than self. Humility is a stance of the heart, by the way. Again, like love, like faith, it's something that you choose. It's a choice that we make. And you've either chosen it as one of the paths of life where you're living out of arrogance and ego, constantly on the defensive. And it's hard in a world that is brutally at war against you not to at least be partially defensive. But you know what I'm talking about. Some people are always on the defensive. You can't say anything about anything to them, or it's go time, right? I mean, there's this element of defensiveness always at work there. People always looking for the negative, all you pessimists out there. I have some friends, man, it doesn't matter what the situation is, they're going to find the worst possible angle on it no matter what. You're just like, oh my gosh, man, get your downer hook out of my brain. You're dragging me under. It's like, why the worst possible thing? I am a realist. Realist. You think that's funny? My wife thinks that's funny. That's because she doesn't understand the difference between optimism and pessimism. I am not the rosy, eternal optimist, but there's a difference. Pessimists are constantly see the worst of every situation and are quick to point it out. I am a realist right here in the middle between the two. My hope is centered and secured in the Son of God and in the kingdom to come. But my eyes are not closed to how bad it really is around me or in any given situation. One of the toughest things you have in a counseling type environment is people coming to grips with just how bad it really is. Because as long as you're playing the game of unreality and you're dancing around, I'm not really addicted to crystal meth. I mean, I just kind of like it a little, No, I mean, I've told people before, I'm just, as kind as I can, there's no kind way to say it. You are a junkie. There's no kind way to say this. You are an addict, period. I mean, how would you like me to phrase it for you? Because, this is junkie level behavior. I mean, classic. We can pull this up in a textbook, on the internet, whatever. Classic junkie behavior. Lying to people, stealing from, other people bailing you out, on and on and on and on we go. That type of stuff. I mean, let's just acknowledge it for what it is. Listen, you're not doomed to hell. You're a child of God, but we need to get you back living under that umbrella of mercy and grace, and let God do some healing here, because this is not what you were made for as royalty. This is not the place you were destined for. This is some other place, right? Something else. When you live on the defensive like that, you're ever observant of the faults and flaws and failures of others and quick to point them out while simultaneously ignoring your own. In opposition to what James teaches, you're quick to speak, quick to condemn, slow to hear, and slow to forgive. Does any of that sound familiar? Easily offended by the slightest change in your situation. Ever ready to judge those wicked sinners who are so much more broken than you. I'll say this, well, maybe they are, and maybe they aren't. Maybe they are more broken than you. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're just more honest about how deeply their hearts ache for this world to be made right and for their king and his kingdom to finally come. You look down the long halls of history, you'll see that arrogance has been the Achilles heel of every bad king or queen to ever sit on a throne. Arrogance. What is the opposite of humility? Arrogance. Someone asked me once, we were talking about our interactions with a particular spiritual leader in a movement that we came out of, and this guy said to me, he was another pastor, and he was real hesitantly said, well, do you think that so-and-so is, I mean, it was like he was scared to even say, you think so-and-so is arrogant? I said, well, what's the opposite of humility? He thought about it for a second. I said, would you say that humility characterizes this person's incessant self-promotion? Constant, constant talking about themselves, pushing their image, all this kind of stuff. Would you say that humility characterizes that? No. I said, okay, what's the opposite of humility? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, there it is. You think about the shark-infested waters of Washington. Those who yearn to be there, longing for power and prestige and position, they should never, ever be there. Those who don't desire any of those things are the only ones qualified to possess them. They're the only ones. You know what we should do, maybe? Instead of sending them to, like in Russia, they would send them to the Siberian gulag, right? To serve in the ice kitchen. Maybe we should send them to Florida to help control the population of Burmese boas and African pythons that have been turned loose on the native wildlife and are killing it off like their own private Cambodia. Think about how that would work. Do lying, thieving, villainous snakes eat other lying, thieving, villainous snakes? I don't know, but it'd be fun to find out, though, wouldn't it? I don't know if that would work. All right, let's close with this. You look back to the history of Israel and the life of its chief legislator. Moses is one of the greatest men, greatest leaders, greatest generals, greatest geniuses to ever walk the earth. He wasn't just a good king, he was a great one. He was a great one. Can you imagine putting up with 1 million plus, possibly 2 million people complaining all the time? This is the divine commentary on him. Now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. Numbers chapter 12 and verse 3. That's God's view of Moses. Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. King David, when he was anointed but not yet king and Saul was still alive, there were numerous times when David could have killed him himself, and it would have been within his rights to do so. Saul was trying to kill him constantly, had him on the run, but he doesn't. He waits on the timing of God. He humbles himself. This is the picture of a noble heart, of the kings and queens made in the image of their mighty God, choosing humility over arrogance, others over self in the very circumstances that we find it hardest to do so. The truth is that we will either choose to live with humility of heart, choose it for ourselves as a way of life in a self-absorbed world, or our Father will arrange to have it chosen for us, one or the other. I'm not going to speak for you, but I'd much rather humble myself so that Abba may one day exalt me rather than the other way around, because I've been on the humbling end and I don't like it, as I think anyone with even an ounce of wisdom would. Marshall, would you take that down? I want you to listen very closely here. I'm even going to get a jolt of caffeine before I say this. Every time in your life that you make a choice, and it's always a choice, to put others before self, serve rather than be served, to humble yourself and let Abba do the exalting, to keep your mouth shut rather than fight to be right. You cultivate the character of the king. You cultivate the character of the king. Every time in your life that you make a choice to put others before self, to serve rather than be served, to humble yourself and let Abba do the exalting, to keep your mouth shut rather than fight to be right, you cultivate the character of the king. Your character evolves, and you move one step closer to becoming the man or woman you were meant to be, to the image that Jesus had in mind when he breathed into you his life. Now, consider how compasses operate. Everybody has GPS and stuff like that now, but it's good to be able to read a map and know where you are. Consider how they operate and how a slight change of 1 or 2 degrees can navigate you to a radically different place. If you're traveling 10 miles in this direction and you get off by 2 degrees, you're going to be in a radically different place when you get to the end than where you need to be. Or if this place is the wrong place, let's put this in the figurative language or the metaphor of the spiritual race, right? If this is the wrong place and you get 2 degrees off, you're going to end up in a radically different place, and maybe somewhere where you need to be. This is the illustration that Dr. Greitens used when he spoke to us of the importance of allowing our character to evolve in the moment by being willing to do the hard thing now, do the hard thing right in front of us. That's what we hate the most, is it not? When it's there and it's like, oh, I don't like this, I don't want this, I don't, all the rest of that stuff, but to do the hard thing now, right in front of us. small or large, to do the hard thing now forges character. It shapes who we are, and it leads to perseverance. And if there is one thing that you will need in a fallen world, in this world, it's perseverance, the ability to endure. May God bestow it abundantly upon you and upon all his children. I'm going to pray for us. We will be dismissed. But as always, we're going to be up here and available to pray with anybody who would like prayer or needs prayer. And frankly, we all need prayer, whether we come and get it right now or not. But every life in this room needs prayer. So we'll be up here, and anything that's on your heart or anything that's on your mind, we're willing to pray for. And I can promise you, you're not going to shock us, and you're not going to cause us to turn our backs on you or to belittle you, because our Father has never done that for us. So I love you, and we'll see you next time. Have how about this? Have a worshipful week. Abba, we praise you and we bless you, and we thank you. If there are lessons like this on every single word, on every single page, every single verse, every single chapter, every single paragraph, there is this kind of wisdom. The greatest among you will be your servant. The one who exalts himself will be humble, and the one who humbles herself, she will be exalted. That is a beautiful thing. When you see people genuinely and truly lifted up by the hand of God, it's awesome. We just want to stop for a moment and say thank you for all that you have done for each of us. Thank you for the blessings and the privileges and the honors you bestowed upon us, and above all, for the sacrifice of your Son on our behalf, for the forgiveness of our sins at the cross, power available to us in the resurrection, and the authority that we can exercise against our enemies spiritually because of your ascension. We have no armor to defend ourselves without you. And so we are grateful, grateful, grateful. Thank you, Lord. Forge in each and every person here, not just the heart of a servant, but the willingness to act, to do the hard thing now. Even if it's service-oriented right here in front of me. Well, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to do it because it's here. The opportunity is there. Take it, to seize the moment, to seize the day, and to move forward by your power and your grace. May your love be seen in all of our lives, because we are experiencing it. We are taking it in, breathing it in moment by moment from you. Thank you, Father, for all that you are. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.